Welcome back to the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast. If you are new here, we are all about optimizing the health and performance of the ageless athlete. We have tons of different guests from the medical, nutrition, and fitness world. So if you're into that type of thing, please subscribe. In today's episode, Scott and I are dissecting how exactly you are going to survive the holiday season, what you should do with your nutrition and your exercise to make sure that you're not going to fall in a hole that it's going to be harder to get out of come the new year. Guys, if you liked this episode, please subscribe, rate, review, share with a friend, and enjoy this episode of the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast. Scott, how goes it?
It's going good. Just trying to stay warm out here.
I hear you, brother. It is that time of the year. There's that crisp blow through the air. Scott was just telling me they had a light dusting of snow. Down here in Florida, the palm trees are lined with lights. So you know it is the holiday season. And because it is the
holidays like a palm tree.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why I mentioned it, Scott. It's a chilly, I think it was 84 degrees today.
Oh man, I need to come down and visit.
But you know what, man? We had like 2 weeks of like beautiful, fall/winter weather. I was like, oh, I'm in for this. And then sure enough, the humidity came back up and now 84 in the day and, low 70s at night. It's not intolerable. I'll take this, 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. But I would love a little bit of a reprieve, just a little bit of a reprieve. So I'm not just walking outside sweating. You know what I mean? Now I know I'm probably, my wishes will be falling on deaf ears, and most people are probably who are listening to this outside of the Florida area are like, please, I don't sympathize with you at all. I'm freezing my ass off.
Yeah, no doubt.
So our little segue from holiday weather is into surviving the holiday season, Scott. And I want to talk about this a little bit because it comes up every year where clients are starting to have a few more parties that they have to attend. There's travel involved, and inevitably clients stop, being as receptive to your phone calls, and their workouts seem to become less and less frequent. And it got me thinking, like, what can we do as coaches better educate our clients in terms of surviving the holiday season? So right off the bat, Scott, what are your thoughts on the holiday season in terms of people's fitness and wellness?
Yeah, well, so my take is that, if you have problems around the holidays with your eating and you typically put on weight at the holidays, it's not really reflective so much of what you do during the holidays. It's really, really, really much more indicative of what you did the 11 other months of the year than what it is during the holidays. Because why would I say that? It's essentially, if you haven't been fueling yourself enough or properly for what you've been doing all year long, you are primed to binge. Your body's been starving for nutrients or maybe overall calories. And this is absolutely true, even if you have excess body fat. We're not a machine, right? So chronic deficits actually lead toward stubborn fat. And so come the holidays, you are primed to, your willpower is going to be thin, and you're going to be primed to eat way more, and your body is in a very primed fat storing state from the other 11 months of the year, and you're going to pack on some fat. But on the other hand, if you were eating enough nourishing food and you weren't leaving yourself shortchanged during most of the year, you will not be inclined to binge. Your body will not want to binge on foods. You'll still have foods you maybe wouldn't normally eat, but you're not going to pack on any weight because you're not going to just go hog wild and eat a ton of food that you maybe don't want to. And that's, this is something I think in the longer picture, just to think about if that is you come the holiday season.
Yeah, I agree. It tends to be, Scott, the nutrition usually goes south first, and that drags everything else down.
Yeah. And then the motivation for the training goes away.
Yeah. Why am I training? I'm not even eating right. I might as well just take the month off.
Yeah. And
So
then, it has to come back with a firm why for your training too, and if you
yeah,
don't have a really clear why, then it's also easy to kind of get off the rails, oh, I ate bad, so I won't work out either. And then, that becomes another missed workout and, some more not sticking to the plan.
yeah, yeah, and to keep in mind, we're not saying that, or at least I perceive that you're not saying to never enjoy yourself and to
Oh,
never
not at all.
indulge.
Yeah, now, yeah, that's, if the first was a pet peeve, another pet peeve is someone that's so strict that they
Yeah,
won't indulge, or else if they do indulge a little bit, they dump 3 times as much stress hormones as they would have dumped if they just went ahead and binged, just
yeah, it's a great point.
denying themselves. It's that's not, that approach is not the way to long-term health, fitness, and happiness. So you have to have some leeway to eat some things you might not enjoy, whatever, the holidays mean to you.
I couldn't agree more, Scott. And to see somebody who's like ultra strict on everything, not be able to indulge, that's where, like, you kind of look behind the curtain a little bit and have some of those conversations of, are you doing this because you just don't feel good while you deviate? Or are you doing this because there's some kind of attachment to eating this certain way that you derive some kind of sense of self from it? And looking just to myself personally, that was one of the things that I had issues with. And you would consider that disordered eating, where who I am is what I put in my body. And realistically, what I'm looking for is freedom. I have the freedom to enjoy a holiday party, eat those holiday cookies, and not hate myself afterward. Have the holiday cookies and be like, wow, I really enjoyed that. But that's not my license to then go, oh, I'm just now a deviating, you know unhealthy person now. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I'm gonna open up with this tip here. And I was working with a client the other day, and it hit me. I was like, this is a good one. Is you got to track some metrics during the holiday season. I think that's something that's important. It holds you accountable and it brings awareness to it, because I can't tell you how many times I've asked people, I'm like, how many drinks did you have last week? And obviously drinks, alcoholic beverages. They were like, oh, I don't know, a few. I'm like, what's a few? They're like, I don't know, 2 or 3 a night. I'm like, okay, that's a few each night, but that adds a lot. That's a lot of drinks over the week. This is what I want you to do. I want you to track how many drinks you have. They're like, oh, okay, perfect, no problem. And then they came back the next week. They're like, yeah, I thought it was gonna be like 8 or 9, and it ended up being like 14. I'm like, oh, well, there you go. So uh, it's a simple little one. As much as you're not going to want to track this stuff, it's because you're going to bring awareness to it, and then you're like, oh, and then I'm not going to be able to do what I want. Yeah, that's the point. Track your metrics during the holiday season. Not saying we're telling you not to have fun, but we're going to tell you, okay, let's see what you're actually doing and how much of that is done because of, you're actually enjoying yourself, versus I'm doing this because I have the permission to go off the rails at this point.
Right. Yeah. With that, then another tip that I've always given to people, and something that I've personally done, is like, if you're going out to a party, or it's, you know, Christmas dinner night or whatever, where there's going to be a lot of food, and you're going to be there a while, and a lot of things may be, less than healthy. Common approach, right? Most people tend to eat very lightly all during the day, knowing they're going in. And maybe on the surface, again, if we're machines, just gas in the gas tank, it's very linear. That might actually make sense, but isn't actually how it works. So actually a better approach is go ahead and fuel yourself fully, making sure you actually do eat good meals, plenty enough protein earlier in the day. And what will happen is then you get there and you're not actually so famished and ready to binge, because by under eating, you've primed yourself for the binge, and you'll still sample various things, but you're not going to have near the quantity you would if you came in ravenously hungry.
but I want to eat more, Scott. That's, honestly,
Well,
I will say,
I, I can see people saying that, but if you come in somewhat fed, you'll eat as much as you want. It
yeah.
just won't be as much as it would have been in the other case.
Yeah, yeah. And here's like the tip for anybody who doesn't take that approach is it's just a habit. Like my habit, my entire childhood into my adolescence and then now into my adulthood up until about 2 years ago, maybe even a little longer, 3 years ago. So like we're talking 30 years of programming here, was to you don't eat throughout the day and then you get to the holiday party and you just crush it. And then at 5:30 you sit on the couch and you're like, I hate my life. So what I do now is I make sure my day up until the holiday party is exactly the same. And this includes Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's, whatever. And then when I get to the holiday party, obviously I get to enjoy what I want to enjoy. But like you said, I don't have as much space. I don't have as much caloric leeway. So when I eat whatever it is I want to eat, that's pretty much as I can do. And that's it. And trust me, like after doing this a few times, you realize, oh, wow, like I actually don't need to do it the other way to gain some kind of satisfaction from it. It's like it's a deeper satisfaction of like knowing like, oh wow, I enjoyed myself, but I didn't like put myself into a hole.
Yeah. And the other point you made there is you'll tend not to get to that place that we're all familiar with where you just ate so much and you're just on the couch and you'll eat till you're full, but not miserable or not,
Yeah.
You'll enjoy the time after and the rest of the night and the next day much more likely.
For sure. And to follow it up with like my next tip was like plan your training and where you are in your training around the holidays, right? Everybody's like, oh, I got to keep doing what I'm supposed to be doing during the holidays. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like how realistic is that? Can you still train your 4 or 5 times a week? Can you be 100, could you be like that 80-20%? Or are you traveling so much? You're having family in town, you're doing all these things. And now that exercise and stuff is an added stressor on top of all of that. And that is where I go, okay, let's back up the training just a little bit. Maybe we're going to go ahead and bump up the emphasis on your nutrition instead of focusing maybe so much on training, right?
Right. Yeah. Oh.
Hey, Keone.
It's coming into focus.
It's coming in and going out of focus.
Whoa.
Yeah, we got the blur filter on there. Materializing.
Look at this big nugget.
It's only my face.
Yeah.
You need to clean your face, actually. That's another tip. You could always just, keep the rest on your face there and then it saves you.
Hey, Scott, I have a question for you. Any tips for holiday eating for the kiddos?
Oh, I'm so good too.
Well, very similar, honestly, eat during the day. Don't save, this big hole to fill come evening.
Yep.
And then it really starts from a very early age. If you're programmed and primed that, we always eat a vegetable.
Great point.
And, we always eat our protein, then that's just how it works then too.
That's actually a really, really good point. So like you're doing your kids' due diligence by instilling those habits early on to realize like, oh, wow, we don't like starve ourselves throughout the day so that we can overconsume in the evening. As far as like the little like cookies and delights and stuff like that, Scott, do you have any kind of words of wisdom around that when it comes to the kids? Is it like you can have one? Is it you don't have any? Is it like you do whatever you want? What do you usually lean toward?
We keep a fairly low limit on it, but that's how it always is everywhere. Yeah. And in my experience, 2 kids now with wildly separated. He's 8 and our older boy is 23. But they were raised in a very similar manner. They are happy with the amount they get. They kind of treasure it rather than,
it's a great
quality over quantity.
Wow.
And one thing that we have always pushed is you can have treats. That's cool, but let's make them good. Let's make it worthwhile. So we usually stick with something really quality. You're not just going to get, some candy bar from the, Quickie Mart down the street or whatever. So, and, like our older boy now, he's an adult, does his own thing, but he's still very, that's how he's continued to to treat things that he likes, right? He finds something good now and then and has that one thing, and that's what he does.
That's a great point. That actually reminded me of, Scott, because my wife had a cookie party. I don't know if you've heard of these. I guess it's very millennial, new agey, where everybody makes a bunch of cookies, like a one type of cookie, but a quantity of them, and then everybody goes to a party, and then they share those cookies, and potentially they even vote and rank these cookies. So, of course, she comes home with a bunch of cookies into the house. And she says, "You have to taste these cookies." And I say, "Lauren, I don't want to taste these cookies. Because if I taste these cookies, all dozen of them, I am going to be in need of some kind of insulin management afterward." So what I did was, I know this is me, so you don't have to be me, is what I did was I didn't do it before I went to bed, because I knew if I ate those cookies before I went to bed, I'd be cooked. So what I did is I had my workout the next day. And then after my workout, that's when I went ahead and I had a bite of each cookie to taste the ones. And then I literally threw them out. That was it. That's all I needed.
Yeah. Interestingly, we'll have leftover, dessert things every once in a while, and they'll often sit, and so I'll tend to eat them after a workout.
Yeah, that's what you save them for. But then from there, I think the tip is also don't keep that holiday food in the house.
Yeah, that's a great one.
You know what I mean? You're like, oh, let me take home leftovers. No, don't take home leftovers. If you did the party at the house, give the leftovers away.
Yeah, with the exception of, you got some leftover meats.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. Get away from the charcuterie board. That's mine.
Yeah. Hang on to that stuff.
I'm putting pepperonis in my pockets.
If it's there, it's really easy to eat for, anyone, right? And put some roadblocks in front of it. Just have it not there. Right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Another one that tends to happen also, Scott, and I noticed I did it this year, and I was much more successful around like Thanksgiving in particular, and I'll definitely do this on Christmas, is like the finger foods that are there that are just there as like, it's almost like potpourri. It's just sitting out. I just stay away from it. It's just like I don't need to eat, cheddar jack cheese, chunks of cheese. Like it's not really like pleasurable for me. It's just like something to do. And I'm noticing it's just busy.
You just do because it's what you do, supposedly.
Yeah, you get one of those tiny little plates, you pile it up with the that, and you little this and that, and you're like, I don't really like any of this stuff. But then I'm like, then there's prime rib, and there's those mashed potatoes, and I love those, like, that green bean casserole. That's what I'm gonna save myself for. I only have a finite amount of room because I don't want to like literally have my stomach burst. So I'm like, all right, I'm gonna wait for that stuff, and I just stay away from the finger foods or the appetizers. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep. Totally. That would be strategic. If it's a big spread, think about, what, the things you really want.
And it's for sure intuitive. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like sitting down and calculating my macros. It's totally intuitive. And again, it gets to a point where I go, okay, I'm almost like completely full. I could have like maybe like a small slice of this and this as the dessert. And I always, leave a little room for dessert because, that's one of my favorite things. And I don't then go, okay, let me eat the Hershey's Kisses. Like, I don't need that. I want like, oh, this was your grandmother's homemade recipe. Yeah, I'm going to have that. I'm going to have the Entenmann's tiny donuts. Okay. Like, unless those are something that like you crave and you really love, it's just like sugar. Like we were even making those holiday cookies in our place, and I tasted one. I'm like, this is just sugar. Like, I want flavor. So like we added like some vanilla extract and some spices and that kind of stuff. I'm like, okay, that tastes like something I want to eat, not just like, oh, this tastes like sugar and it's just going to, like give me a buzz off of this. I'm not in for that. I want, like, if I'm going to eat something that's indulgent, I want it to be worthwhile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Similar to, what I had said earlier with the kids, but make it worthwhile.
Now,
and another
go ahead, Scott.
That I've seen people struggle with, and it's probably still less of an issue this year. It wasn't much of an issue at all last year with COVID, but holiday at the workplace, people that work for larger
Great point.
organizations, that can be a significant tripping point, right? You've got a break room potentially that is maybe just laden with stuff that your coworkers are bringing in constantly. And so, way around that minefield kind of goes back again to that whole idea of be prepared, bring all the food you need. Don't go in wondering, or, I've got this, but I'm gonna have to grab this and that today to fill it out. Now, be fully prepared, and then you'll be much less likely to, need to dip into that stuff on a routine basis.
That's
Because
a great point.
I recall when I used to work for a large organization, we had a break room, I think from Thanksgiving until New Year's Day. There was probably something in the break room almost every single day that wouldn't have normally been there. And that was, for the taking kind of stuff.
I heard this one a long ago. I forgot where I got it from, but I use it myself. Is if you are going to a holiday party, or maybe you need to provide something for the break room, bring it yourself and offer it to everybody else. Right. Because at the very least, you know that there's one thing that you
Oh, yeah.
want to eat and can eat. So for me, my go-tos are usually like roasted Brussels sprouts with like the bacon. That's a good one that I bring.
Yeah.
Another one that I tend to do is like meatballs, and I'll do them with like gluten-free breadcrumbs, and I'll do it like myself. I'll make them, and then I bring that, and it's like, who's not like doesn't like a meatball, and I make them.
Yeah.
They're delicious, but I'm like, okay, if there's nothing else around here that's like that's
Yeah. Good.
you bring it
Good
on your
point
own.
on those potluck days or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, for sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
I can recall doing that. In fact, I almost want to say I made something like Brussels sprouts and bacon. I do remember vegetable dishes getting cleaned out really well, as I would try to make them good, and
Oh, for
people
sure.
would crush them.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a good point that it's like it also it's a good point of like, why am I not doing this more often? You know what I mean? Like, wait a second, it really wasn't that big of an issue to make some roasted Brussels sprouts with some like, chopped up bacon. Why don't I do that on a more regular basis? So I see the holidays as almost as an opportunity of like, hey, there's some times where, you're like, oh, I'm going to eat out tonight because I want to indulge. But then there's like, you know what? I'm going to make an awesome meal for myself to indulge. Like, I'm going to go and get that nice ribeye. I'm going to make my Brussels sprouts. I'm going to make my homemade mashed potatoes, and I'm going to eat that at home rather than paying twice as much at a restaurant because I wanted to indulge, or going to a holiday party, obviously, if I wanted to indulge. So there's, this could give you some permission to go like, oh, wait, like I did this in the holidays. Why don't I do this like once a month, once every 2 weeks, where I just go off the rails, but doing it in a way where I'm cooking and I know what's going into it,
Hmm. Yeah, that's another great tip. I like it.
Yeah, yeah. So, in terms of like fitness and stuff, Scott, are there any tips that you have for people when they're either trying to adhere to their exercise routines? Is this a time to ramp down, ramp up? What are your thoughts? Like, you have a lot of experience in this area. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts around the holidays and training?
And for me, it depends on the person a little bit. And I work with a lot of people on an individual level, and it goes some different directions. Some people really like to stay, on it anchors them, and we find a way to get it done. If they're traveling, we take into account that it might be a hotel or just a body weight workout, or maybe you bring a minimal thing or two with you. Others, we take some days off during this phase, and it's never really, especially if someone truly is consistent all the time, having like a recovery week or two is really not the worst thing in the world. I always suggest being lightly active, continuing to do the joint circles and getting out and walking and those sorts of things, but nothing all that structured. And then I have a handful of people that I still sort of, I mean, very loose guidelines, and that, they're traveling maybe, and they're going to go to the Globo type gym in their hometown and just have some fun. And I was like, yeah, go do this, maybe get this one or two things done to keep on track with whatever it is we're working on. But other than that, just, have fun, see what they have, do something different you don't normally get to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it goes back to have some balance and don't be neurotic about your training during the holidays. If you have to miss a training session because the family's in town, or because you're traveling, or because you have a work engagement, there always will be a time to work out. But those like events in your life, you might remember those forever. And you might look back on those like, man, remember when it was my kid was this big and my parents came to town and everybody was happy. And if you don't have that memory because you were out at the gym for 2 hours getting your workout in, like I empathize, but I think there's a different way to go about it. And again, this is coming from like a serial exerciseaholic. It's just a habit. Once you start practicing the other stuff, that'll fade a little bit, and you'll see that there's much more enjoyment from sharing time with others than sitting alone in a gym. Now, that being said, you can always go for a workout with the family and have an awesome time doing that. I know there's a bunch of like Santa 5Ks and all those types of
ways
things.
to do it.
So yeah, there's fun ways to do it,
Yeah.
or you get outside and have a little fun workout, depending on whether or not.
Yeah, we'll do something like that sometimes. Yeah, get the kids involved, and just we're taking a trip over Christmas here. We'll be at the beach. I'm not taking any workout gear, but I'm sure that we will clock a number of hours of physical activity, just playing around and doing stuff, and probably some sort of impromptu workout. So I'm not worried it'll happen. And if it happens, and if it doesn't for some reason, that's cool too.
Perfect.
The gym will be waiting for me.
Yes.
Within a week. Yeah.
And that's a good reminder at the end of the day. This time of year could be like a rest and restoration time. We're just trying to minimize the damage. But, if you're really, really hitting it hard and you're trying to minimize the damage, which most likely is going to happen, is you're going to put yourself into more of a deficit after the new year. And now you're in a hole. So I take it as a time where, like, you know what, maybe back off on my training a little bit, focus on nutrition, enjoy myself, fill my cup for the month. And then when I get back into January, that's when I hit it hard. Scott, if they want to get a hold of you and maybe potentially do some training with old Scott Hagnes, how can they do it?
You can reach out to me, scotthagnestraining@gmail.com for the email, or you can go on Instagram, and I'm Scott Hagnes Training there as well, and you can DM me there.
Awesome. And I'm Sean Floch. You can get me at flochfitness.com, Floch Fitness on Instagram and all the other socials for training, nutrition, or our brand new 6-week Better Your Front Rack Mobility program. So get on that. Scott, I will talk to you next week, my man.
All right. Talk to you next week.
Later, dude.
Later.
Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. If you like what you heard, please do us a huge favor. Go online, give us a 5-star review. It helps grow the podcast more than you know, and it's completely free to you. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, share this podcast with a friend, and we will see you next time with a brand new episode of the Fitness, Wellness, and Longevity Podcast.